Part 25. 10,000 times return. I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 241. Time flies. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. The annual Forgotten River Festival on Lulin Star is about to begin. The elves who return to the Council of All Races also obtain the qualification to participate in this sacrifice. The elf queen Atna personally led the team to the Forgotten River area, but the number of the elf sacrificial team was not large, only 30 in total. The number of participants is about the same as some medium-sized tribes. Forgotten River Festival. In name, it is a worship of the Mother River of all races on Lulin Star, and the main purpose is to collect pure Forgotten River water. The more places in the sacrificial team, the more chances to get more Forgotten River water. There is a sacrificial site on the edge of the Eternal Forest. The elf team was arranged to this sacrificial site by the Council of All Races, and they all arrived at the Forgotten River soon. This is the first time Su Xian saw the Forgotten River. The length of the Forgotten River runs through the entire Lulin Star, with an average width of 10 miles, and the widest point is as wide as 100 miles. The source leads to the depths of the Earth's core. It is a dangerous and mysterious river. Standing on the shore, Su Xian looked at the turbid water rolling through the river. His spirit seemed to be sucked into the river, and he even had the urge to jump in. Everyone be careful. The elf queen Atna held the scepter in her hand. Come on, complete the sacrifice as quickly as possible, and collect the water of the Forgotten River. Yes, Your Majesty. The elves set up their formations and began to perform sacrificial activities. Su Xian mixed in with them and learned in a very good way. He could feel that there was a force in the sky that was monitoring from time to time, and other tribes were also performing sacrificial rituals in the distance. All tribes sacrificed together. Smoke floated over the Forgotten River. Totems of various shapes appeared on the Forgotten River. The river water rolled more violently, and the totems of all tribes were roaring. In the sacrifice, this meant that all tribes helped the Mother River drive away the evil spirits living in the river. They hoped that one day the water of the Forgotten River would become completely clear. That would be enough to change the pattern of the entire Lulin Star. The totems of all races shine together. Su Xian stood among the races, his mind was a little dazed. Judging from the apparent power, Lulin Star was much stronger than Blue Star. If it weren't for the internal strife, Blue Star would have fallen at the time of the initial collision. At this moment, it seemed to hear the will of the races of Lulin Star. The waves in the Forgotten River became more and more fierce. It seemed to be possessed by evil spirits and was very unfriendly to the totems of all races, even wanting to destroy them. Countless collisions gradually calmed down as the scorching sun rose. The totems of all races dissipated. The elf queen Atna shouted, "Now, enter the Forgotten River. I wish you all a full return." Plop! Plop! All the sacrificial teams of the races entered the river. The turbid matter of the Forgotten River floated up. The closer to the bottom, the more likely it was to collect pure Forgotten River water. The races kept sinking and let their bodies sink. At this time, it had entered the stage of showing their magical powers. Some races that are naturally good at water have a lot of advantages at this moment. After sinking into the water, Su Xian found that the divine sense above was completely blocked by the Forgotten River water, and it was difficult for him to use his own divine sense. If he forced it out, it would only be polluted by the turbid Forgotten River water. It seems that it is not easy to collect pure Forgotten River water. Su Xian finally understood why the Forgotten River water was so precious. He sank for more than 100 meters, and the river water he saw was still turbid and completely impossible to collect and use. Moreover, the density of the Forgotten River water was extremely high. Just more than 100 meters made him feel a heavy water pressure. If he wanted to dive to the bottom of the river, it would probably cost a very heavy price. Su Xian was not here to risk his life. If he could not violate it, he would not force it. He kept sinking. At more than 500 meters, he could basically no longer see other collectors. If there were any, they were very far away. The water pressure here was so great that he had to divide some of his strength to resist it. The river water below became clearer. He should be able to reach the bottom of the river if he went down further. Su Xian gritted his teeth and dived again. Collecting pure water from the forgotten river is not just a matter of using a container to scoop it up. You must find a plant that grows at the bottom of the forgotten river, an algae plant named forgotten grass. Then use the forgotten grass to absorb the turbidity and purify it to get pure forgotten river water. The life cycle of the forgotten grass is very short, only 1 day at most, and it may die and wither in a few minutes at the shortest. The withered forgotten grass not only cannot purify the forgotten river water, but also becomes part of the turbidity in the river. Regarding this, the strong men of Lulan Star have studied it for a long time, but still cannot solve it. Forgotten grass. Su Xian was thinking, and suddenly a touch of green floated in front of him, which was the growing forgotten grass. He dived quickly. The collection bottle in his hand quickly scooped over and collected a pot of relatively clean river water, then took out the forgotten grass, stuffed it into it, and urged the power to let it absorb the turbidity. The forgotten grass that absorbed the turbidity quickly turned black, and it was taken out and thrown away. In this way, he got some pure water from the forgotten river. A small bottle only had about 20 to 30 drops. But this was already a lot for Su Xian. After all, if he gave it to his disciples twice as much, it would be the amount that hundreds of races could collect together. He continued to search for the shadow of the forgotten grass. On the shore, Atna stared at the rolling forgotten river in a trance. During the sacrifice just now, she was almost always looking at Kaid, but she didn't see any flaws. Did I guess wrong? Atna was a little distressed. A human disguised as an elf must have some mistakes in details. If it was really Su Xian who disguised himself, then the disguise was too perfect. No, this might be the best opportunity. I want to go down to see him. Atna knew that in the forgotten river, any divine sense exploration would be isolated. Only in this way could it be guaranteed not to be spied on. But as the queen of the elves and the host of the sacrifice, it was too abrupt for her to go down in person. While hesitating, some of the elves had already come up. Those who came early were forced to come up because they could not bear the pressure before finding the forgotten grass. 7 or 8 elves did not even collect a drop of pure forgotten river water. Alas! Atna sighed. The elves are no longer as good as before. Not only are they weak, but they are also extremely disunited internally. Except for a few ancestors, most of the strong men in the tribe followed Moira to Blue Star. Some of them defected from the Eternal Forest a few days ago, and some died in the riot. There are only a few elites left. However, a flash of inspiration came to Atna's mind, and she suddenly thought of a good way to conceal her tracks. 10,000 times return. I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 242. The elves came out of the river one by one. Soon, the entire sacrificial team consisted of 30 people. Except for Yvonne, the legion commander of the elf knights, all the other elves had come ashore. But not a single drop of pure forgotten river water was collected. The elves all lowered their heads in shame, not daring to look directly into Atna's eyes. Fortunately, Her Majesty the Queen has a gentle nature and will not blame her subordinates easily. Otherwise, she would have sent these losers away long ago. Not long after, the regiment commander Aiwen also came ashore. He held a small jade bottle in his hand with an excited expression and handed it to Atna. Your Majesty the Queen, my subordinates have collected 10 drops of pure forgotten river water. Thanks for your hard work. Atna gave the same reply. This is what subordinates should do. Ivan's enthusiasm was mostly extinguished in an instant. Why does Her Majesty the Queen always say such things to him? No matter where he stands, these are what he should do for Her Majesty the Queen. Atna did not reply to Ivan, but looked at the other elves in the sacrificial team. Everyone, our elves participated in the Forgotten River Festival again after hundreds of years, but only received 10 drops of pure Forgotten River water. It would be a joke to all the people. In this case, I personally went down to lie down. No, Aiwen was anxious. How can Her Majesty the Queen, with her body of thousands of gold, enter the river in person? I am willing to risk my life to go down again. No need. Atna waved her hand. I have my own judgment in my heart. You and your clan will wait above. Ivan added, Your Majesty the Queen, Cade didn't come up either. Maybe he can collect some, so you don't have to go down in person. Noisy. Atna snorted coldly. Ivan was startled. This was the first time he saw Her Majesty the Queen angry. However, this cannot be blamed on Her Majesty the Queen, only on her own incompetence. Her Majesty the Queen cares about her people and does everything herself, which is worthy of admiration. Under the ashamed gazes of the elves, Atna jumped into the Forgotten River like a fish. The elves all thought that she was going to collect water from the Forgotten River. However, Atna had no intention of paying attention to this at all. She anxiously searched for Cade. At this point, Atna was even more certain that Cade was Sushien. She kept diving down and soon saw Sushien collecting forgotten grass in the water near the bottom of the river. Sushien also felt the gaze from behind. He turned around to look, his expression still calm, but he was confused in his heart as to why Atna was here, or why she was coming straight to him. Meet Her Majesty the Queen. Sushien saluted calmly and asked, Why did you come down in person? Atna looked at him and asked, Cade, I heard that you recently accepted Nicolaline as a disciple. Sushien was shocked. This kind of questioning. Could it be that Atna has discovered him? He has had this suspicion since Atna deliberately inspired the blood aura at the elf temple 7 days ago. Now that Atna has personally come down to meet him at the bottom of the river, this guess is almost certain. In the turbulent river water, Atna's heart beat rapidly. She took out the jade bottle containing Sushien's blood. It's you, right? Sushien was silent. His silence was undoubtedly the acquiescence in Atna's eyes. Do you suspect that I betrayed Moira? Atna asked. Without waiting for Sushien to answer, she said again. Don't worry, I can set up a restraint on speech and spirit, and I won't embarrass you. With that said, Atna set up a speech and spirit ban in front of Sushien. Sushien was helpless. Since Atna had shown his loyalty and got in touch with Moira, he had nothing to hide. Anyway, he had to be honest with Atna when performing the final mission. It's me. Sushien regained his voice. It's really you. Sushien, Atna's eyes suddenly turned red, I miss you so much. Although she only got along with Sushien for a short period of time, for the elves, some things were decided the moment they met. She rushed forward and wanted to hug Sushien, but Sushien avoided her without leaving any trace. Such a small action can hurt so much. In Sushien's heart, Atna is a good friend, but she is just a friend. Humans are different from elves. Without the experience of getting along day and night, it is difficult to have deep feelings, let alone develop feelings. He came here for Suying, not to see Atna. It wouldn't make much difference to him to change the target and hand over the task. Atna, when will that thing be handed over to me? Sushien asked. It is undoubtedly the best time to talk about this matter under the Forgotten River. Atna felt a sense of disappointment. Why didn't Sushien ask her about her condition after seeing each other for so long? She had suffered too much injustice and suffered too much for this matter. How many days and nights I cried alone. She wanted to find someone to talk to. But throughout the entire Eternal Forest, no one deserves absolute trust. Within half a year Yatna replied, I don't know the specific time. I will notify you as soon as the time comes. Thank you. Su Xian clasped his fists. Atna pursed her lips, you're welcome. You saved me twice, no. It was 3 times. On the day of the coronation ceremony, the mysterious strong man who saved me was also you, right? Yes, Su Xian nodded. How should I repay? Atna looked at him closely. I owe you too much. No. Su Xian shook his head, you don't owe me. You have paid so much for the human race and Blue Star. As a member of the human race, I am just doing what I can. He sighed in his heart. In order to complete this part of the Suiying plan, Atna really paid too much. Such a kind and innocent girl was forced to sit on the position of queen. Spurned and insulted by countless tribesmen, with no relatives, she had to move forward with a heavy burden. He could also feel Atna's emotions. That's why he deliberately distanced himself from her on the grounds of the mission, hoping that this little girl could change her mind as soon as possible. Atna smiled bitterly, go up early. With your current status, it's not appropriate to stay at the bottom of the river for too long. The people of the 10,000 Races Council are now keeping a close eye on our elves. Su Xian nodded, I know. He has collected more than 100 drops of pure forgotten river water. The amount seems small, but as long as it is given to disciples, it will be a huge fortune. In order to avoid suspicion, Su Xian went ashore first. As soon as he got ashore, Ivan rushed up, grabbed his arm and asked anxiously, Cade, you finally came up. Did you see Her Majesty the Queen? Is she okay? I think I did. Su Xian pretended not to know, Her Majesty is protected by the Eternal Scepter, she will be fine. Not long after, Atna also got ashore. Ivan immediately rushed over and asked, Her Majesty, are you okay? Looking into the Queen's eyes. For some reason, he always felt that there was a trace of sadness in the Queen's eyes. Just like himself, the sadness of being unable to love. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 10,000 times return, I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 243. With the collection of the sacrificial teams of all ethnic groups ending, the Forgotten River Festival is also gradually coming to an end. Next, there is a very important step, that is, each race needs to hand over 1/3 of the collected pure Forgotten River water to the Council of All Races. However, most ethnic groups will choose to hide their secrets and will only submit to a minimum standard. Not long after, the king of the Council of 10,000 Tribes came to the Elven sacrificial team. The aura of the king of the realm is revealed, extremely powerful, without any restraint. He looked down at Atna and asked in a cold voice, Elf Queen, what are the results of your elves' collection this time? According to the standards of all races, the elves are a big race and should pay at least 100 drops of pure Forgotten River water. 100 drops. Atna's expression changed. The quota given to the Elven sacrificial team by the Council of 10,000 Tribes is only for small and medium-sized ethnic groups, but they have to pay the same share as the 36 major tribes. It was clear that he wanted to embarrass them. No. Atna refused coldly. She knew that the Council of All Races would not let the elves off easily. In the eyes of the main war faction, the elves' sins were unpardonable, and they would not be forgiven even if they returned to the Council of All Races. What's more, there are also dark elves who are obstructing this. But she also knew that blindly tolerating would only intensify the bullying by the Council of All Races, and it was not certain whether she would be able to defend the homeland of the Eternal Forest. She had to do something to fight back. At least let the guys in the Council of 10,000 Races know that the elves will not always give in. If they are forced again, they will unite with the leader and faction to fight to the death. The king of the council looked at Atna, with murderous intent erupting all over him. The other tribesmen in the suppressed sacrificial team couldn't breathe. This has been the rule of the Council of All Races for hundreds of years. Do you, the elves, want to make an exception? Atna waved her hand and threw out a jade bottle. There are only 10 drops of pure forgotten river water. This is the maximum amount that our elves can pay. If you don't follow the rules, you can't blame the council. The king directly smashed the jade bottle, waved his hand, and the huge pressure instantly pressed against Atna, and the other elves were directly lifted away and fell into the distance. The scepter in Atna's hand is certain. The natural energy between heaven and earth and the source of life in the eternal forest are all used by her. As long as it can be recognized by the eternal scepter and eternal crown. In a sense, the elf queen in the eternal forest is invincible, and the entire forest can be used as her power. Behind Atna, trees thousands of meters high rose from the ground. It roared and roared. Thousands of branches turned into fists and headed towards the parliamentary king. The latter's expression changed and he wanted to retreat, but he felt a strong natural pressure. It was the will of the eternal forest suppressing him. Puff! 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 The fists of the 1,000-meter treemen kept bombarding the king, smashing him directly into the forgotten river, causing countless waves. Atna's voice sounded coldly. The return of the elves to the Council of All Races does not mean that we accept arbitrary bullying. If the council is not sincere and wants to start another war, we will accompany it. Atna's momentum amazed the elves. It was only now that they felt the majesty of the queen. This was Her Majesty the Queen who could sustain the elves' inheritance for countless years. Walk. Atna turned and left. The overt and covert strongmen of the Council of All Races looked at Atna's leaving figure, and after all, they did not dare to move again. Your Majesty, are you okay? The team went away, and Alvin came up again and asked. Atna glanced at him. As the leader of the elf knights, you should know when to stand up. The queen's disappointed eyes were like a knife cutting into Ivan's heart. He lowered his head in shame. Facing the strong men of the Council of All Nations, he did not dare to resist, because he knew that he could take the position of leader of the knights only because of the support of the Council of All Races. To be more precise, he is the spy placed by the Council of All Races around the Elf Queen. In the team, Su Xian looked at the scene with deep feelings. It seemed that the elves had a deeper foundation than he thought. Atna's level is actually able to use the Eternal Scepter to mobilize the power of the Eternal Forest to fight against the powerful king. If Moira was in charge, no one would dare to offend the elves. Before the two worlds collided, the elves should have played a decisive role in the entire Lowland Star. Why would Moira lead most of the clan's forces to oppose all clans and support Blue Star? And united with other lords and factions to create civil strife in Lowland Star? Just peace-loving? The elves killed the soldiers of all races without mercy at all. As his horizons improved, Su Xian saw more and more things. Many things that he thought were simple before seemed not so simple now. In his thoughts, the sacrificial team has returned to the Eternal Forest. Evan, Cade, come with me. Atna disbanded the sacrificial team and called the army commanders Iwen and Su Xian to the elf temple. They were also the only elves in the team besides Atna who collected pure forgotten river water. Alvin was ecstatic inside. Is Her Majesty the Queen going to give him a reward? Su Xian was absent-minded. He just wanted to end the mission quickly, help Su Ying complete the plan, and go home to retire as soon as possible. Come to the elf temple. Atna looked at Iwen and Su Xian. In this sacrifice, you have done a good job and saved the face of the elves. You can give me any reward you want. Ivan had already thought about his lines and said respectfully, Your Majesty the Queen, I don't need any reward. It is my honor to serve the Queen. If possible, I just want to be by your side forever. Su Xian next to him twitched the corner of his mouth. He finally understood. This Legion commander Ivan is just a licking dog, the kind who will definitely lose everything in the end. The key is that the licking is not complete. He also wanted to win the favor of the Elf Queen, but he didn't dare to risk his life to fight against the Council of 10,000 Races. With a smile on his face, he was destined to get nothing in the end. In response to Iwen's expression, Atna nodded lightly and looked at Suxian. "Cade, what about you?" "Your Majesty the Queen, I want some fountain of life." When it was Suxian's turn, he was not polite either. He handed over 10 drops of pure forgotten river water. "Isn't it too much to exchange for some fountain of life? Be bold." Before Atna could respond, Alvin shouted angrily, "Cade, don't push yourself too far. It's an honor for you and me to serve Her Majesty the Queen. How dare you ask for the precious fountain of life? The fountain of life can be said to be the symbol of the elves. It is also one of the lifeblood of the elves. Compared with the pure forgotten river water, the undiluted spring of life of the elves is rarer and more valuable. It doesn't matter." Atna waved her hand to stop Ivan, who was about to say more, and said, "Cade has made merit in this sacrifice and deserves a reward. Tonight you can come to the moon well in the elves' ancestral land to receive the reward." Alvin's face suddenly turned ugly. Regret surged in my heart. He really wanted to give himself a big mouth. Why would he say that? I almost got a chance to be alone with Her Majesty the Queen. What he didn't know was that even if he made the same request as Suxian, he would still be rejected. Some things depend on the person, not the conditions. 10,000 times return. I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 244. Leaving the Elf Temple. Suxian returned to the dormitory of the college. After leaving the temple, he felt a gaze behind him. He knew without guessing that he was hated by Ivan. This. Suxian was speechless. He refused the reward and insisted on licking it. He couldn't lick it and still hated an innocent person. Sure enough, the licker didn't die well. Suxian ignored this guy and just hoped that this guy would not do anything impulsive, otherwise he would not mind letting him disappear from this world. "Teacher, you are back." Just as Suxian returned to his residence, Nicole Lin felt the movement and ran over. After practicing the big star disc, Lin's perception of things was much sharper than before. Even with a black cloth on her eyes, she could still move freely. "Lin, how does it feel to feel the world with your heart as your eyes?" Suxian asked. "Very wonderful." Lin's mouth slightly raised. "After closing my eyes, the picture of the world disappeared, but my heart was closer to this world. The way of deduction requires the heart to sense another trace of the operation of all things in the world. Calm down. Abandon the impetuousness of the world. Only then can you see the true nature. Fate and cause and effect are mysterious things. In practicing this way, the importance of state of mind and understanding far exceeds the root bone. Sit down, and the master will change the cloth strip for you." Suxian smiled. Lin sat down obediently, with a straight back. Suxian took out the collected water from the forgotten river and soaked the new cloth strip, took off the old cloth, and replaced it with a new one for Xiaoqi. The eye of the divine mentor opened. Data emerged. Root bone value, 105. Understanding value, 215. Heart value, 85. Compatibility with the secret art star plate has been cultivated to the small success level of the star domain map. Existing constitution or bloodline, diseased eye of prophecy, healing rate, 10%. Suitable constitution or bloodline, the compatibility with the yin-yang divine body is 95%. After being baptized by the marrow washing potion, Xiaoqi's root bone value and comprehension value have improved slightly, and the diseased eye of prophecy has also improved. But the healing rate is still a bit low. This is destined to be a long process. "Teacher, my eyes are so hot." Lin couldn't help but want to rub her eyes, but was stopped by Suxian. "Lin, you can't touch it, your eyes are sick," This is to cure it. Okay. I won't touch it. The nourishment of the forgotten river made Lin feel quite uncomfortable, but when Su Xian said this, she immediately suppressed her inner restlessness. No matter what, she couldn't let down the teacher's intentions. At the same time, the system prompt sounded in Su Xian's mind. Ding, you have given your disciple Nicolin 10 drops of pure forgotten river water. Congratulations on triggering the 6,000-fold critical return. You have obtained the mythical enchantment item Forgotten Orb. Forgotten Orb, mythical quality, it can be enchanted on weapons or equipment to give the weapon an enchantment effect. The possible effects of this orb enchantment are Soul Shock, Dark Erosion, and Forgotten Illusion. Please select the weapon or equipment that needs to be enchanted, and the system will automatically help you complete this enchantment. Choose the Flowing Star Meteorite Knife. Su Xian's mind moved. Enchanted weapon, Flowing Star Meteorite Knife. Enchanting. Enchanting completed. Your weapon, Flowing Star Meteorite Knife, has obtained a new enchantment effect, Forgotten Illusion. Forgotten Illusion, when your weapon obtains this enchantment effect, there is a certain probability that the enemy affected by the knife will enter the Forgotten Illusion and fall into a lost state. Forgotten Illusion. Although the enchanter is one of the 4 secondary professions, Su Xian has rarely come into contact with it. Mainly because his own weapon is already powerful enough and does not need low-level enchantments to add icing on the cake, he has never paid attention to these. However, from this point of view, there is still a basis for the enchanter to become one of the 4 secondary professions. The buffing effect of high-level enchantments on weapons is obvious. His Flowing Star Meteorite Knife is originally a strong attack-type weapon, and now it has been enchanted with Illusion Attack, which has significantly improved the combat power. It's a pity that each piece of equipment can only be enchanted once. However, Su Xian thought of an interesting thing. The Thousand Chance Umbrella has many forms, and it is his life weapon nourished by blood. If it is enchanted with this, can it be enchanted multiple times? After all, no one has tried to enchant the Thousand Chance Umbrella before, maybe it really has a miraculous effect. You can try it if you have a chance. In the territory of Lowland Star, Su Xian did not dare to use the Thousand Chance Umbrella. As long as the Thousand Chance Umbrella appears, his identity will be exposed. He put away his messy thoughts and then taught Xiao Qi some knowledge about the great astrology. Since he found confidence, Xiao Qi's attainments in divination have progressed rapidly, and his perception of everything is gradually deepening. It is not a problem to complete some small prophecies. This is without using the Eye of Prophecy. Time soon came to night. After Su Xian told Xiao Qi to stay in the house and practice well, he walked alone towards the elves' ancestral land. During the day, Atna said that she would reward him with some fountain of life. However, Su Xian always felt that Atna's purpose was not so simple. Facing Atna's kindness, he always felt a little uncomfortable and guilty. After all Atna paid was to complete a part of the Suying plan, for the entire Blue Star human race. Cade. Just as Su Xian passed through the outer perimeter of the ancestral land, the commander of the Elf Knights, Yvonne, suddenly appeared from the side. Are you going to see Her Majesty the Queen? Yes. Su Xian nodded, wondering what this licking dog was going to do. You are not allowed to go. Yvonne said coldly, the elves are in trouble now. The fountain of life is the lifeblood of the elves. You can't take it. Don't think that Her Majesty the Queen is kind and you can do whatever you want. As a member of the elves, you should think about the elves and have the awareness of sacrificing for justice. Su Xian. If you can't get it, you can't let others get it. If it weren't for the identity restriction, he would have slapped this licking dog to death with a slap. Captain of the Legion, Her Majesty the Queen is still waiting for me. Su Xian smiled, I'll go in and try it out first. If Her Majesty the Queen really doesn't want to, I'll withdraw. Evan's eyes were like a tiger, and his fierceness was exposed. Cade, I advise you to take care of yourself and abide by the virtues of the elves. Su Xian ignored the sky and walked forward, looking for death. Evan's eyes were red. He didn't care about the queen's blame. Anyway, the council of all races stood behind him. If he killed this Cade, Her Majesty the Queen would not give him any substantial punishment. Swoosh! A long arrow burning with the law of elements shot through the air and shot at the back of Su Xian's head. Su Xian was still walking leisurely. At the moment when the long arrow was about to hit him, it stopped abruptly and shattered with a bang. Then a huge pressure came. Kneel down. The eternal forest roared under the majesty of the queen. Ivan felt that he was restrained by the huge pressure, and fell to his knees deeply buried in the mud. Atana's angry voice sounded, Ivan, as the commander of the elf knights, you dared to kill your own people. This is an unforgivable crime. Considering your past merits, this time you will only be punished to kneel here for 3 months. If there is a next time, you will die. Ivan's eyes were red. Her Majesty the Queen actually attacked him, and made him kneel here in humiliation. Let him watch Cade walk into the ancestral land. Is it possible that he has served the Queen so much, but he is not as good as a little Cade? 10,000 times return, I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 245. Su Xian passed through the periphery and came to the ancestral land. Like the elf temple, the ancestral land is also a safe place that can shield the prying of all races. Under the eternal ancient tree, Atana leaned against the trunk, quietly waiting for Su Xian's arrival. She took off the queen's dress, removed the majestic protective color, and restored the purity of the girl in the past. A faint smile hung on her face, and a simple leaf dress embellished her graceful figure. She stood there, as if she was the most beloved jewel in the palm of the hand of heaven and earth. Su Xian, you are here. She spoke, and her light and pleasant voice floated in the forest. The flowers, plants, and trees swayed, as if responding to the call of the queen. On the table made of tree stumps in front, several glasses of fine wine were poured. Su Xian looked at it and remembered the time when he said goodbye to Atana at the Red Moon Tavern in Longdu. The little elf at the time is now the queen of the elves who rules the world. Su Xian walked over and sat on the stool covered with leaves. Birds chirped and insects chirped around, and the night was quiet. Sitting here, I felt quite comfortable, and finally my heart was at peace for a while. It has been more than a year and a few months since we last parted on the battlefield between the two worlds. If it weren't for you desperately seeing me off, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to successfully enter Lulan Star, let alone complete His Majesty's mission. Recalling that day on the battlefield between the two worlds, Su Xian rushed into the enemy camp alone and triggered thousands of thunders. That day, Su Xian shocked not only the countless enemies of the 10,000 races. Her hot girlish heart was also shocked. Su Xian laughed dryly twice, you're welcome, it's just a small favor between friends. For him, that situation was not a desperate farewell at all. At most, it was just a favor while fighting monsters. Unfortunately, the girl was at the age of thinking about puberty. Sensitive and sad, always liked to think too much. Atana smiled sweetly and poured a glass of wine for Su Xian. This is a glimpse of 1,000 years, you have drunk it before, but the most peculiar thing about this wine is that it feels different when you are in a different state of mind. Su Xian had no choice but to pick up the glass and drink it in one gulp. Atana, it's not appropriate for me to stay here for too long. In fact, it doesn't matter whether I take the fountain of life or not. I came here mainly to ask you, what exactly is the thing that Moira asked me to take back? A trace of sadness flashed in Atana's eyes. Are you here entirely for the mission of Her Majesty Moira? After not seeing each other for so long, do you really have nothing to say to me? Su Xian's head was as big as a cow. Atana's affection was too passionate, and he didn't know what to say. He was afraid that if he said something wrong, this silly girl would fall deeper and deeper. There will be a chance in the future. Su Xian stood up, his eyes changed, his eyes were full of homeland and mountains and rivers. The war will end, the elves will no longer suffer, and there will be a prosperous age for the human race. No matter what the mission ends up like, you will not die, I will take you away from here. So, let's not discuss the future first, okay? Atna stared at him in a daze, and for a moment she couldn't tell whether this was a lie Su Xian said to comfort her, or if he was really confident and had already arranged everything. Her heart was pounding. Thinking of the past scenes, from the desperate killing of Feng Ho when encountering on the spaceship, to the heroic figure of the Thunder God descending on the battlefield between the two worlds, to the powerful sword-slashing Feng Wang at the coronation ceremony. When did Su Xian do something he was not sure of? Which time didn't he break everything in doubt? She could doubt herself. But she shouldn't doubt Su Xian. Perhaps Su Xian had planned everything since he set foot on Lulan Star. The sadness in her eyes gradually dissipated, and her eyes became firm, and she nodded heavily. Su Xian, I believe you. Su Xian. Silly girl. The rebel army is not as easily brainwashed as you. He felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. Atna's trust in her was so firm, but all he could do was keep his distance. After drinking these wines, I will tell you. Atna picked up the wine glass on the table. The aroma of wine mixed with the fresh breath of the forest surrounded the two. Su Xian just wanted to say that after drinking the wine mixed by Moira, Atna's wine was still a little tender, lacking some heat, and could not make people drunk. He drank all the wine in the glass. Under the moonlight, Atna danced with the moonlight. The birds and beasts accompanied the queen. The flowers and plants were willing to bow down under the queen's skirt. The towering ancient trees shook their branches, wanting to hold her in their palms. Only the one who made her willing to pour out all the stars in her eyes seemed to have a heart of stone, unmoved, and watched the dance calmly. The fountain of life, for you. Atna buried her sadness in her heart and handed over a small jade bottle. You want the fountain of life for your disciples, right? Yes, Su Xian nodded. Atna complained, I should have known you as a friend. It might be happier to be your disciple. Su Xian didn't know whether to laugh or cry, maybe it's fate. Atna sighed, in fact, what Moira asked you to take back is the lifeline of the entire elves, that is, the tree in front of you. This eternal forest is the tallest and largest, carrying the eternal ancient tree that has been passed down by the elves for countless years. What? Su Xian was shocked. If it weren't for Atna's solemn expression, he would have thought he had heard it wrong. The importance of the eternal ancient tree to the elves is self-evident. As Atna said, it is the lifeblood of the elves. If the eternal ancient tree is uprooted, the entire eternal forest will decline, and the elves will lose their protection. The elves are already having a hard time on Loren. If they lose the protection of the eternal forest, the remaining elves on Loren will probably have no choice but to perish. Moira is taking the lives of the entire elves to make a big gamble with Blue Star? What happened in the first place? What is there on Blue Star that is worth the elves risking the death of the entire race to unswervingly complete all this? Peace. Not enough. Su Xian's inner shock is difficult to calm down. The shock of this news is too strong. The elves have paid more for Blue Star than the human race itself, but no matter what he has to do now is not to hesitate. What he has to do is to complete the important task entrusted to him. Leave here with an indispensable part of the plan. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 10,000 times return, I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 246. Su Xian, do you know now? Atna looked at him, the tribesmen who stayed here have long been included in Moira's sacrifice plan. At that time, we will join the peace faction to fight to the death. Open a bloody road for you and send you home. Su Xian was puzzled. Why does Moira have so many followers who are willing to follow her through life and death? It has been 500 years since the collision of the two worlds. Moira has been away for so long, and the peace faction of the entire Lauren Star seems to still follow Moira's will. He wanted to ask again, but Atna refused to answer. Su Xian, I am very happy to see you again, and I have no regrets in my heart. She waved goodbye with tears. You go back. I hope that when we meet again, you and I can be firm in our hearts and complete what we should do. Su Xian sighed. He is not a cold-blooded person. Knowing that one part of this plan requires the lives of the entire Lauren Star elves to pave the way, he felt that his shoulders were heavy and he had a lot more things to carry. I'm leaving first, you have to be careful too. Under Atna's gaze, Su Xian turned and left. Looking at Su Xian's departing figure, Atna's eyes were full of sorrow. She smiled bitterly a few times, then put on her best clothes and walked towards the direction where several elf ancestors were in retreat behind the moon well. The several elf ancestors left by Moira are also the reliance of the entire Lauren Star elves. They are decayed and look like dead wood. From the outside world's point of view, the elves still have several kings sitting in the elves. Only Atna knows that several ancestors have reached the point of exhaustion. They can hold on until now, completely relying on the spring of life in the moon well to keep them alive. But they can't hold on for much longer. After completing the last task given to them by Her Majesty Moira, they will also return to the embrace of nature. Atna walked into the retreat of several ancestors. Whoosh! 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 4 figures appeared beside Atna. Greetings, Her Majesty. Atna was the successor chosen by Moira herself, and now she has been recognized by the Eternal Scepter and the Eternal Crown, and is a darling protected by the natural elements. Although they are elders, they also know how to abide by the etiquette of monarch and minister, and are willing to assist Atna to complete the grand plan. Even if they don't know the full content of the plan. Thank you for your hard work, old ancestors. Privately, Atna did not put on airs as a queen, and was very respectful to several old ancestors. She whispered, how are you contacting the leaders of other tribes in the peace faction? The giants have already been contacted. An old ancestor said seriously, before the plan starts, the giants will secretly send their young children to our eternal forest, and the strong men in their tribe will also fight with all their strength after the plan starts. The titans have also been settled. The feathers have also agreed. The demon hunters are fine. The power of the peace faction on Lauren Star is not small. Among them, the titans, feathers, giants, demon hunters, and several other large tribes have good relations with the elves, and have also provided assistance to Blue Star. In addition to several large tribes, the small tribes of the peace faction are also a force that cannot be underestimated. Your Majesty, when can we take action? Asked an old ancestor. Soon. Atna clenched her fists. It will be a bloody battle. All the ancestors should take good care of themselves these days. If you have the chance to rush out and meet Her Majesty Moira, perhaps Her Majesty can still find a way to extend the lives of the ancestors. Several ancestors laughed at themselves. They knew that this was a comforting remark. They did not seek to survive, but only hoped to burn the last remaining light of their lives and do their last bit for Her Majesty Moira and the tribe. Your Majesty, the Council of All Races is now eyeing us covetously. They have strong infiltration power and may not be unaware. An ancestor said, you are now the backbone of the entire plan. You must be careful not to be caught by the Council of All Races. I will be careful. Atna nodded solemnly, I stand here, not for myself, but for the entire tribe. I will be very careful and not give the Council of All Races any chance. On the other side. Su Xian, who got the elements of the plan from Atna, felt more confident. He returned to his residence. Xiao Qi is still working hard to practice archery and the Great Star Plate. According to the system's convention, when Xiao Qi practices the Great Star Plate to the great success level, he should be able to obtain a new mentor's gift package. The other 3 skills and secrets. Sun Xiaokang's special life field has expanded to a certain width. The meditation lotus in Miao Tian's body has also grown greatly after the trip to the Sorrow Cave. The little tower spirit Su Mai Wang's magical power of the law of heaven and earth is even more in line with it, and has shown its full power since the beginning of practice. Now the only thing missing is Xiao Qi's Great Star Plate technique. When he expands the star field deduction map to the extent of the merger of 3 star fields, it should be considered a great success. Lin, drink this too, it should make your body better. Su Xian took out the fountain of life given to him by Atna. The amount was not much, only about 10 drops, but it was precious enough. Teacher, is this the fountain of life? The elves have a natural keen sense of smell for the fountain of life, and Lin also drank the fountain of life diluted countless times when she was very young. She has never forgotten that taste, which is deeply engraved in her mind. The fountain of life that the teacher gave her was much richer than what she had drunk in her memory. Just smelling the strong breath of life made her intoxicated. Su Xian smiled, just drink what the teacher gave you. Thank you, teacher. Lin was extremely excited. For a 6 or 7-year-old elf, the temptation of the fountain of life was too great. After getting Su Xian's consent, she stuffed the entire jade bottle containing the fountain of life into her mouth like a wolf. The system prompt sounded in Su Xian's mind at the same time. Ding, you have given your disciple Nicolin 10 drops of the fountain of life. Congratulations on triggering the 7,000-fold critical return. You have obtained a piece of Fountain of Life crystal. Fountain of Life crystal, it is formed by the solidification of the essence of life in the Fountain of Life. It takes thousands of years for each moon well to form a piece. This is a rare thing that can bring back the dead and the flesh and bones of the living. Any life that takes this thing can be restored to its original state as long as there is still a breath. Both the soul and the body can be perfectly healed. Su Xian was delighted. The war was imminent. He didn't mind having more life-saving items. He had many means now, and the only thing he feared was the demigods of Lulin Star, even though the demigods of the 2 worlds did not participate in this battle openly. But he knew that the demigods were always paying attention to the battle. He had already sneaked into Lulin Star, and once he showed up, for the sake of Lulin Star's plan, the demigods would definitely kill him. He just hoped to bring the things back quietly without causing any trouble. But if he was discovered, he could only try his best. 10,000 times return, I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 247. Time passes. In the following days, Su Xian has been teaching Xiao Qi. Xiao Qi is also very hardworking and practices day and night. Even in physical combat, which she is not good at, as long as Su Xian sets a goal for her, she will definitely work hard to complete it. To have such determination at such a young age is quite remarkable. After more than a month of practice, Xiao Qi finally mastered the big astrolabe technique to the level of the double star domain deduction chart. Su Xian is also waiting. Bawang Hao Miao Tian and Xiaoda Ling's Yumai will have been killing monsters on the battlefields of the 2 realms, and they have also provided him with a lot of rewards. However, his current realm is high enough and his field is very special. After such a long time, both realms have only been filled with 1 layer, and they are far away from the king realm. At the same time, as the planning time approaches, the major clans of the Lord Harmony sect also launched their final actions. In a hidden underground passage that was completely isolated from the atmosphere, all the seedlings of the Lord Harmony sect clans were sent into it. Elf Queen, all the descendants of our giant clan have been sent here, totaling 3,000. The leader of the giants looked at Atna, the commander-in-chief of this operation, they are leaving it to you. This is the hope of our giant's future. Please help us safely send them to Blue Star and hand them over to the tribesmen in Blue Star. Atna nodded, don't worry. The children will arrive at Blue Star safely. If everything goes well, maybe we can go there together. Not long after, seedlings from the three major tribes, the Titan clan, the Feather clan, and the Demon Hunter clan, were also sent over. The four major clans left behind 12,000 descendants. In addition to the many small clans, there are a total of 20,000 descendants, which is also the future inheritance and hope of half of the Lord Harmony sect. As for the other half, it has already taken root and sprouted in Blue Star. Thank you for your trust. Atna bowed slightly and expressed her gratitude to the leaders of the major clans. Next, please prepare for a full-scale war. In 2 months at the latest, the final plan will be launched. Maybe even sooner. Then we will wait for the Queen's orders. There are still many things that need to be dealt with within the clan. In order to avoid being noticed by the eyes of the Council of 10,000 clans, we cannot stay longer. Take the first step. Leaders of various ethnic groups come and go in a hurry. After seeing off the leaders of all races, Atna breathed a sigh of relief. The final decisive battle between the Lord Harmony faction and the Council of all races was about to begin. It was unknown how many tribesmen would be able to return to Blue Star this time. Their plans began many years ago. If it weren't for the purpose of completing Moira's plan, they would have moved their entire family to Blue Star 500 years ago. The entire Lord He faction has been fighting until now just to complete that part of the plan. Atna's eyes looked into the distance. On the outskirts of the Eternal Forest, there is a super large world passage leading directly to Blue Star. After obtaining the trunk of the Eternal Ancient Tree, they will launch the final attack. Enter through the super large world passage and return to Blue Star. As for how many clan members will die on this road, they don't know, but they are already prepared to die. Even if they are all ruined. But as long as Su Xian brings back the trunk of the Eternal Ancient Tree, Moira's prophecy will be changed, and their tribe will not be destroyed. Otherwise, the entire Lord Harmony sect will be destroyed, including those branches on Blue Star. I hope everything is safe. Atna clasped her hands together and prayed in her heart. The city of all races. After 2 months of seclusion, the dark elf fortune teller Daisy finally came out of seclusion. Representatives of all ethnic groups gathered together. 2 months ago, after the Forgotten River Festival, Daisy chose to retreat and use the great divination technique to perform divination. The first reason was to find out the traces of Su Xian. Secondly, it also clears the way for the subsequent all-out general attack on Lulan Star. Your Majesty, is the great prophecy still going well? The representative of the Fallen Angel clan asked. Representatives of other ethnic groups also looked expectantly. Daisy sighed, as for Su Xian's traces, even if I use the great prophecy technique to deduce, I still can't find any trace of him. Everything about him seemed to be sealed in the vast chaos, and no information could be pried out. I tried to peek, but almost got backlash. Representatives of all ethnic groups were shocked. Even my great prophecy can't trace any of his aura. Once this Su Xian grows up, he will definitely become a disaster. I'm afraid this person, like Lin Suiying, has a mysterious and powerful being protecting him behind him. The representatives discussed. When the parliament issued the highest fatwa against Su Xian, although they felt that Su Xian was somewhat of a threat, it was nothing in the face of the general situation. But after 2 members of the parliament were cursed to death from a distance, they panicked. Unless this child is removed, they will not be able to sleep peacefully. Maybe one day he will be cursed to death from a distance. It was obviously the parliament that issued the supreme fatwa against Su Xian, but now it was just the other way around. What made them most helpless was that they had no way to deal with the 2 people closest to Su Xian, Shui Yuang Lin Suiying and his daughter Li Xiaoli. Let's put it down for now about Su Xian. Daisy said helplessly, when the time comes, he will appear, and then we will kill him with the power of thunder. At present, another thing is more important to us. With the blessing of great prophecy, I felt something in the dark. A big event will happen in the eternal forest, which may affect the direction of the entire war in the future. Even if the great prophecy can only glimpse a vague direction of this matter, in order to avoid accidents, the action against the elves should be started as soon as possible. The representative of the fallen angels said, the elves should be killed. They have been brainwashed by Moira and it is impossible for them to really submit to us. The representative of the Blood Clan laughed and said, how about giving the task of exterminating the elves to you, the fallen angels? The representative of the fallen angels snorted, let me, the fallen angels, go to die, so that you can take advantage of me behind my back. If we want to go, naturally, the 36 major clans will send strong men together. The representatives of all the tribes all know that the elves seem kind, gentle, and peaceful, but they have a fierceness in their bones that would rather die than surrender. This can be seen from the event of Atna ascending the throne. As long as most elves are determined in their hearts, they will defend it with their lives and will never surrender easily. If a war really starts, the fighting power of the elves in desperate situations is still something that many tribes cannot bear. They all know that there is a magic circle left over from ancient times hidden in the eternal forest, which possesses the extraordinary power of the legendary elf god. When the desperate situation comes, the last magic circle will inevitably be opened. Whoever dares to take the lead must be prepared to be buried with the elves. The king-making strongman is the backbone of any tribe. No one is willing to make wedding clothes for other races, even if they are on the same front at this time. 10,000 times return, I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 248. Everyone, stop fighting. Daisy spoke up to stop the quarrel between representatives of various races. She also knew that the eternal forest had the means to perish with many kings, so the kings of all races were unwilling to take the lead. Defeating the elves is destined to be a thankless task. With the character of the elves, they will definitely destroy all resources even if they fight desperately, and will not let the council of all races get anything. She looked at the representatives of various ethnic groups with a faint look in her eyes. I will ask for the power of the divine messenger to come and break the ancient magic circle of the elves. Then I will ask you all to work together to take down the elves. It's best if you can capture them alive. If you can't capture them alive, kill them all. Daisy's tone was cold and murderous. If the great prophecy hadn't predicted that the elves would affect the direction of the future war, she wouldn't have wanted to spend so much effort on rectifying the elves. It would be best to slowly erode them. But after performing the great prophecy, she became increasingly uneasy, always feeling that something big was going to happen. The Parliament's intelligence organization also began to conduct large-scale infiltration and collection under her orders. I believe it will not take long to gain insight into the elves' plans. Eternal Forest. In relatively peaceful days, Su Xian taught Nicola Lin various knowledge. In addition to the big astrolabe technique, Lin's worldview, outlook on life, and values are basically at a blank stage, and she needs good guidance from Su Xian. At night, the master and apprentice sat on a tall tree and watched the stars in the sky. Nicola Lin's progress in the art of big astrolabe can basically be described as 1,000 miles a day, and her super high understanding was gradually developed and displayed under the guidance of teacher Su Xian. It won't take long for Lin to reach a higher level, condense the third star map, and reach the state of Dachshund. Lin sat on the top of the tree, looking at the stars obsessively. Suddenly, the vision in front of her changed. I don't know when a star filled with black energy appeared among the thousands of stars. This is a sign of evil. Her eyelids were beating wildly, and her gray-white pupils became very dry. Su Xian, who was sitting aside, also noticed something unusual, and felt a moment of uneasiness in his heart, as if something was spying on him. People who practice divination and prophecy are most afraid of this kind of sudden dangerous intuition. It means that something big will happen in all likelihood. "Teacher, I just saw a black star shadow," Lin said anxiously. "In the big astrolabe, it seems to represent evil. Is something bad going to happen? Did even Zioki feel it?" Su Xian made a judgment in his mind. If he was the only one who felt something was abnormal, it might be an illusion, but even Xiao Qi, who had the eye of prophecy, noticed something was wrong, which meant something was really wrong. "Teacher, I'm afraid." Lin Jiao looked at Su Xian with a pale face and tightly grasped the corner of his clothes. "The last divination was bad, and my grandma died in the riot not long after. This time it was evil again." She was afraid that something might happen to her teacher. She didn't want to experience the pain of losing a loved one again. "It's okay, my teacher is here." Su Xian patted her shoulder. "Whether it's evil or bad, with a good teacher, everything can be turned into a good omen." Feeling the warmth from the teacher's thick palms, Lin felt much calmer. "Teacher, have you ever seen a real blue star human?" Lin didn't seem to want to discuss the matter anymore and changed the topic. Su Xian was a little surprised by the sudden change of topic. "I've seen it." He nodded. "More than ever, your teacher is a human being." "Really, teacher?" Nicola seemed a little excited and interested in humans. "Teacher, do humans really look the same as in the textbooks?" "Almost. The shapes of humans and elves are similar, but the ears of the elves are more pointed, the skin color and pupils are also somewhat different, and there is a big difference in physique." Lin's eyes were full of hope. "I really want to see a real human being. I also want to go to Blue Star. I heard that Her Majesty Moira of Destiny is also there. It would be even better if he could see Moira in person." Because of education. Most elves have a good impression of humans, and so does Lin. Su Xian smiled and said, "Lin, if there is a chance to go to Blue Star now, would you like to go?" "Think," Lin blurted out and immediately shook her head. "No, I can't think about it." "Why?" "Because I have to follow the teacher." Lin said seriously, "There are so many things in this vast world that I yearn for. If I have to see them all, I won't have time to accompany the teacher." She glanced at Su Xian cautiously and secretly rested her head on the teacher's knee. "I know that no matter how big the world is, you are the only one. Just like the vast sea of stars, no matter how big it is, it can't beat you in front of me. So following the teacher is more important than anything else." As she spoke, she began to cry. The voice became choked. There were no tears, but the air was filled with strong sadness, and even the surrounding flowers, plants, and trees became wilted. "Teacher, I have already lost my grandma, and I don't want to lose you again." Looking at the sad Lin, Su Xian felt dumbfounded. This kid is too emotional. One second he was still talking about dreams, and the next second he started imagining life and death. He can understand it too. For such a young child, perhaps he is the whole world for this child. Su Xian also felt that since practicing the great astrology, Lin's inadvertent spiritual fluctuations have become stronger and stronger. Lin seems to be able to spread her emotions through spiritual power, thus affecting the surrounding lives. If Lin can use this power reasonably, it can save him a lot of trouble. He has always been worried that Lin's own combat power is not enough, and she does not even have the most basic self-protection ability when encountering danger. He can't always stay by Lin's side. After all, he has to teach Lin some combat methods. After a long time, the master and apprentice returned to the residence of the Elf Academy from the treetop. After Lin fell asleep, Su Xian quietly went out and walked towards the direction of the elf ancestral land. The appearance of the evil tonight made him feel a little uneasy. It is necessary to notify Atna to take precautions in advance. "Su Xian." As soon as he approached the ancestral land, Atna felt something. Why are you here? Is there something urgent? The two had agreed before that if it was not necessary, try not to meet, so as not to arouse the suspicion of the eyes of the Council of 10,000 Races. Atna's voice was a little surprised. She also knew Su Xian's character. Since Su Xian took the initiative to come to her, there must be something important. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 10,000 times return. I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 249. Under the moonlight. Atna's figure appeared in front. Looking at Su Xian walking quickly, her heart beat fast. Atna, how long will it take for the fusion of the eternal ancient tree and the moon well? Su Xian didn't talk nonsense and went straight to the point. I have a hunch that there may be some turmoil recently. Atna frowned slightly. Do you have a premonition too? I've been feeling restless lately, as if something big is about to happen. I thought it was because I've been worried too much lately. But the integration of the eternal ancient tree and the moon well will take at least half a month, and we can only wait. Su Xian was shocked and became more certain of his guess. The power of fate and cause and effect is so mysterious that it cannot be accurately perceived, cannot be touched, and it is not even known whether it exists. But sometimes it can really play a key role. Su Xian asked worriedly, are there other forces that know the core of our plan? No. Atna shook her head, only you and I know about transporting the eternal ancient tree, but our Lord and the sect will follow the prophecy of Moira's Majesty. While you are taking away the eternal ancient tree, we will launch an attack on the super large world passage near the eternal forest and head to Blue Star. Su Xian was puzzled. Why? Atna smiled bitterly, I don't know either, but this is Moira's prophecy. If we stay here, we will all be destroyed. Going to the Blue Star is the only chance of survival. This is also why other races of the Lord Peace Party support us so unswervingly. Su Xian paused, with some doubt. Moira, is she really so magical? Worthy of such deep trust from so many races? Tell you a secret. Atna pointed to the distance, the fortune teller of the Council of all races now, Daisy, the great prophet who has made countless races of lowland star worship, is just a student of Moira's crown. Why do you think Moira was named Destiny? Got it? Su Xian no longer worries about this. Moira is so great, but she still can't control the overall situation. What he executed and arranged is still just a link in Su Ying's plan. So how big is the involvement behind this plan? In this way, there is no room for mistakes. Atna, in short, you must be extremely careful in your actions these days. Su Xian warned, your plan involves too much, and there are many people with mixed eyes. If the Council of 10,000 Races investigates carefully, they will definitely find some traces. It is better to be cautious. Atna nodded, I understand, everything is based on our plan. No matter what, I will let you take the things back. I'll remove all the friction before you get your stuff. City of all nations, Parliament. Ever since the decision against the elves was made, Daisy prayed for the power of the divine messenger to come. Only the power of the divine envoy can break the ancient magic circle in the eternal forest. Otherwise, if the lives of soldiers from all races are used to fill the gap, I don't know how many kings and princes would have to be sacrificed to completely defeat it. Divine Messenger is a title that has been passed down from ancient times. He is a being above the demigods. It's just that no one has actually seen the divine envoy, including Daisy. She has only heard of the existence of the divine envoy. According to the guidance of ancient books, she was lucky enough to receive the power of the divine envoy. According to rumors, there is more than one divine messenger, at least 12, and possibly 13. Daisy didn't know which divine envoy gave her the power, but she believed that the divine envoy's guidance was correct. Everyone. The power of the God's envoy has arrived, and I will carry the power of the God's envoy to block the ancient magic circle in the eternal forest. Please arrange your own teams and start a large-scale siege of the eternal forest. For the sake of all races and the Star of Lowland, no elf can be let go. Representatives of all major clans nodded solemnly. Whether it is out of hatred or to prevent disasters from the great prophecy, they will not show any mercy to the elves. Without the support of the ancient magic array, no matter how strong the elves are, they are nothing more than a fragile piece of paper facing the combined attack of the 36 major clans. Representatives of all ethnic groups took orders and prepared to march into the eternal forest. Wait for the representatives to leave. Daisy also returned to the Dark Elf Temple. In the center of the temple, a fire filled with the aura of destruction was suspended. Thank you, God. Daisy bowed devoutly, put away the fire, and disappeared immediately. At this time, the teams of various ethnic groups who had received orders from the council had begun to set off towards the eternal forest. The strong men of each ethnic group had already sealed off the outer perimeter of the eternal forest. Such a big movement, as the queen who controls the eternal forest, Atna must have sensed it, and the eternal scepter in her hand kept whining. It's really here. Atna's face turned pale. Did they notice it after all? Even though she had been prepared for it, when she actually faced the council of all races, Atna still felt a little scared. She remembered that His Majesty Moira said that Daisy was once his most proud disciple and had a very rare talent in divination and prophecy. Except for the legendary Eye of Prophecy and the yin-yang divine body, it is difficult for any elf to surpass Daisy in divination and prophecy. After all, Daisy secretly spied on the elves' actions. Are you going to fight hard? Atna tightened her hold on the scepter in her hand. The eternal scepter is necessary to activate the ancient magic circle of the elves, and it is also the last resort of the elves. She knew that even with the protection of the ancient magic circle, the elves would not be able to hold on for long. They would be broken in 3 to 5 days at most, and the eternal ancient tree would wither by then. In that case, all their efforts would be in vain. Now, they can only take more extreme measures to speed up the process. Whoosh! 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 The next moment, 4 figures appeared around Atna, and they were the 4 ancestors of the elves. Your Majesty, why did you call us so urgently? Something happened. Atna said solemnly, the Council of all races may have discovered our plan. I can feel that the area near the eternal forest has been blocked. It is very likely that the guys in the council are doing this. I am afraid that their next target will be the eternal forest. An elf ancestor said, Your Majesty, you have already controlled the eternal scepter and the ancient magic circle. How dare they attack so forcefully? When did the council become so united? Atna shook her head. They suddenly launched an attack, and they must have prepared corresponding means, otherwise they would not have waited until today to start. At worst, we will fight, and start the plan in advance. Several ancestors have already put life and death aside. Anyway, they are all dead wood that will decay. Whether the plan succeeds or not, they will not be able to survive. The plan must be started in advance. Atna looked at several ancestors and said carefully, but compared to resisting foreign enemies, there is another more important thing that needs to be done by several ancestors together. 10,000 times return. I am a mentor in the Novice Village. Author, Mingtong Shui. Chapter 250. Just follow the Queen's orders. The ancestors were calm. Even if Atna asked them to die immediately, they would not hesitate at all. Atna pointed to the towering ancient tree in the center of the ancestral land. 4 ancestors, I need you to form a natural formation to activate the life energy in the 12 moon wells to help the eternal ancient tree complete its final evolution. After the words fell, the 4 ancestors were a little puzzled. They knew that the eternal ancient tree was the lifeblood of the eternal forest and the elves, but they had never heard that the eternal ancient tree could evolve. But at the moment of life and death, they had no reason to question Atna. Questioning the elven queen chosen by Her Majesty Moira, whom they had followed for countless years. Please rest assured, Your Majesty. We will do this right away, and you should also be careful. The attack from the Parliament will come at any time. The four ancestors received the order and immediately rushed to the moon well. Atna waved her scepter. The light of nature fell, and the last life of the four ancestors bloomed brilliantly. Their states were all restored to their peak at this moment. With the four elf ancestors as the guide, the endless life energy in the 12 moon wells was pulled. 4 beams of light condensed by pure life energy were injected into the eternal ancient tree from different directions. At this moment, the flowers, trees, birds, beasts, and insects in the whole forest became energetic. What happened? Is that the eternal ancient tree? Such a rich breath of life is escaping, what's going on? The elves also felt the changes in the eternal ancient tree. The eternal ancient tree, which was originally towering, has begun to grow again? This made them a little uneasy. The elves have been in too much turmoil recently, and any slight movement makes them feel panic in their hearts, fearing that the war will come again. In the Elf Academy, Su Xian was also looking up at the towering ancient tree. The plan finally encountered twists and turns. As he was watching, a light flashed beside him. Atna stepped out of the space and tilted her head to look at Su Xian. I'm afraid the plan has to start ahead of time. Sure enough, has the Council of All Races noticed the movement? Su Xian narrowed his eyes and looked out of the forest. He felt a strong space blockade. The war is inevitable after all. Atna said solemnly, before being discovered by the Council of All Races, you must not take the initiative to reveal your identity. The Council does not know our core plan. As long as the core plan is completed, our efforts will not be in vain. Su Xian nodded, I know, everything is based on the plan. That's good. At this moment, Atna finally had the grace of the queen, not the ignorant elf girl. The scepter in her hand burst out with dazzling light. At the same time, there was also endless murderous intent. This was the first time Su Xian felt the murderous intent in Atna. Puff. 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 The next second. All the members of the Council of All Races in the Elf Academy, whether guards, mentors, or other personnel, died at the same time. It's time to clean up the internal garbage. After cleaning one place, Atna moved instantly and kept appearing in various places in the Eternal Forest. All the members of the Council of 10,000 Races were wiped out. She had been forbearing everywhere before to avoid war conflicts and failure of the plan. Now that everything that should and shouldn't have come has come, she has no scruples. The elves were terrified when they saw the queen who suddenly went mad. The members of the Council of 10,000 Races fled even more frantically. How complacent they were when they came, how embarrassed they were at this moment. Facing the queen of the elf who controlled the entire Eternal Forest, they didn't even have the ability to resist. In just a few minutes, all the members of the Council of the Eternal Forest were slaughtered. The elves were all at a loss. What happened? When they were confused, Atna's voice rang out in the forest. Everyone, the Council of All Races is about to launch an attack on the Eternal Forest. War is coming. Please bring your weapons and equipment to meet the impact of the storm if you are capable of fighting. Follow the guidance of the great elf god, follow the prophecy of Her Majesty Moira, and pursue the truth of nature. We elves love peace, but we are never afraid of war. I know that not long ago, I hurt the hearts of many people in the tribe. I am sorry for your faith. I sincerely apologize to everyone here. Today, I will defend the dignity of the elves with my life. The elves have never surrendered, but are just waiting for a better future. The voice of the elf queen Atna floated in the eternal forest. The tribesmen were a little confused. Hasn't Atna surrendered to the Council of all races and defined Her Majesty Moira as a traitor? Why did she suddenly say that she was following the instructions of Her Majesty Moira? What happened? The sudden change made some people unable to adapt. But more elves would rather follow the Queen to fight, rather than live in cowardice, allowing the Council of all races and the hateful Dark Elves to eat away their heritage bit by bit. Then they were completely imprisoned by the Council of all races. This is not the style of the elves. Pursuing freedom and embracing nature are the true pursuits of the elves. Atna's voice sounded again. If there are tribesmen who are unwilling to participate in this battle and want to submit to the Council of all races, this emperor will also give you this opportunity. You can leave the elves now and walk out of the eternal forest. The elves are not all warriors. Most of those who supported Atna's ascension to the throne in the early days were members of the Council of all races, and only a small number were Atna's own loyal followers. After a little hesitation, those elves all walked out of the eternal forest. They walked nervously step by step at first, and then ran away quickly. Atna could sense all the movements of these elves. The moment they walked out of the eternal forest, the elf leaders breathed a sigh of relief and began to run harder. But not long after they walked, an invisible barrier appeared in front of them. The army of the Council of all races had been waiting for a long time, and they captured all the elves in an instant. According to the results of Daisy's great prophecy, they had already prepared for the massacre. All life in the eternal forest, not only the elves, but also the stationed members of the Council of all races, must die. It is better to kill 1,000 by mistake than to let one go. At this time, all the elves are armed and ready to fight. Including the underground, the peace-loving army is also ready. The moment the war begins, they will tear open a hole at the fastest speed at all costs. No matter what, the inheritor in the tribe must be sent into the super-large world channel. Send it to the only place of hope predicted by Moira of Destiny. For this, no matter what,